Today, we have Bert Monroy. Now, over 30 years ago, I went to the South San Francisco Conference Center, and this was it was like a little conference center, but it was the biggest conference center I had ever been to. I had never been to a conference before, so I went to this conference center. I mean, I've been to farm shows, but it's not the same. So anyway, I went to this conference center, and a couple people were speaking, and for me, the magic was Bert showing us how to do these incredible photorealistic things in this app that had only been out for a couple of years called Photoshop. And so that's where I learned. I mean, it is where I learned how to really turn the corner on using Photoshop. I had been going to a little art college before that. I went to that, and within a couple weeks, I was teaching the class, the course that I was taking because of what I learned from Bert. I showed a couple of little things. And now Bert and I have been working on and off together for that 30 years. We go through a time where we don't see each other very much, and then we see each other a lot, and then we don't, and so we shared segments on Tech TV with Leo Laporte, me showing visual effects stuff, and Bert showing all these incredible Photoshop tricks again, the same ones, many of new ones and better ones than what I had seen years before. I actually worked on a show with Bert for Revision 3, and again, all the magic, of using Photoshop. And over those 3 decades of working with Bert, what really stands out beyond the technical skill, there's a lot of people that know how to use Photoshop, but it's this attention to detail of really paying attention to all the small details that are required to make something really look photoreal and really stand out. And for me, that's the talent that has always really stuck out with Bert, and why I'm so excited, or one of the many reasons I'm so excited to have Bert here on the show today. Bert, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So great. So you didn't start in Photoshop. How did you get into this business?
Well, I've been an artist my whole life. In fact, my first recognizable drawing, I was only 2 years old. I actually drew something that you can tell what it was. I was really small. I've been drawing my entire life. And I got into the business. I went to the High School of Art and Design in New York. And I went to the School of Visual Arts, where I was later a professor. And I was always into art. And I worked mostly in the advertising industry and as an illustrator. Now, back in 1984, I had a small agency, and my partner said that we had to computerize. And I said, oh, okay.
That was pretty early on, too. Your partner was a visionary.
And I said, so why? I said, well, he says, I need to be able to keep track of a lot of things and help me to be organized. And there's this new computer coming out that you'll be able to do your layouts on. So I was a little skeptical, so I went down grudgingly to the computer store, and there was this little Macintosh. It wasn't shipping yet, but they had one, and they were showing it. And I sat down, and there was only Mac Write and Mac Paint. But I wasn't interested in Mac Write, but Mac Paint was like, okay, let me see what this does. So I drew a little box, and then I moved it. I selected it, moved it, and I said, well, that's going to save me a lot of money on tracing paper. I can do my layouts on this, And then all of a sudden, I thought I broke it, because all of a sudden there was these big black boxes and white boxes. And I called the guy over. I said, what happened? He said, oh, you went into fat bits. Fat bits? Yeah, you zoomed in and zoomed in. So that clicked. I said, this is it. This is the future. This is where it's got to go. And this is the beginning, this little 72 DPI and 9-inch screen. But I started playing, and we ordered it right away. Now, I went to the store for a few hours every day to play. And they let me. I would sit there and master Mac Paint in the store, and they let me play because people would come over and they'd see what I'm doing. I was selling Macs for them. I didn't get a commission, but I was, learning it. Then when the computer finally came, that's it. I closed the ad agency and started a whole business around the Mac.
Wow.
And that summer of '84, I put out a thing called Human Forms that let you put together human bodies. It had all these forearms and all these upper arms and hands, and there was little crosshairs at the joint. So all you had to do was connect the crosshairs and then erase the little cross, and you could assemble human bodies. And then, we just started selling all kinds of, we were the first ones in New York to sell mouse pads. Remember those?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we started selling all kinds of Mac products and stuff, and then I joined the New York Mac users group, NIMUG, and I became the art director of their newsletter. And so I was into it. I was very into it, and I started getting all these uh, publications. I was in Mac User, I was in Mac World, I was doing a lot of stuff with Mac Paint, and because I was so visible, everybody who was doing anything with graphics would send me their product. How can we make this better? How do you like the UI and so on? And that's how I got to see Photoshop 2 years before Adobe did. So
Right. So this is before Adobe even bought it.
yeah, this is before they bought it. Yeah.
And how did the Knoll brothers get to you? How did they did you send it to you, or did they?
Actually, most people would send things to me, but there was in this particular case, they sent it to my then partner. I had a new partner at that point, who happened to be the guy who sold me the computer. He used to work in the computer store. Then he came to work for me, and then my other partner went away, and he and I became partners. We co-wrote the first book on Photoshop. His name was David Biedny. He got it because at that point he was also the technical editor of Mac User magazine, so he was getting all this stuff. So he got it, and so he says, "You got to look at this thing." So I went over to his desk and I looked at it, and I said, "Wow, this is really cool." So at that point, I was called Mr. Pixel Paint because I was doing a lot of stuff with Pixel Paint. This is a Mac 2 had come out, so that whole thing. There's a lot of stuff before that, like Image Studio and all these other things that were for the like the Mac Plus. And I just fell in love with it and grew with it. Then Adobe bought it and co-wrote the first book before the thing came out. It hadn't come out yet, so they told us to hold it. We wrote it in 1989, and they said hold it till 1990 because that's when we're releasing it. So it came out shortly after the program. It was the only book for almost 2 years until Jack Davis and Linnea Dayton wrote the Wow book, which was the second book. But I got to see a lot of stuff. I got to see so much software. Everybody was sending me things. Some things were really good. Some things were really bad. And so it was a fun time.
When you used that very first the pre-release of Photoshop, and I know that a lot of folks now, a lot of us use Photoshop. I was using Photoshop last night, to do stuff, and I was using generative fill and moving things around and thinking about. I was actually, because we were getting ready for the show, I was really thinking about the class that I took from you, and that I think that layers had just been released. Like I think that we were just able to get
3, yeah.
Yeah, so 3 had not been released when you did the class, but you were able to show us that layers were coming. Yeah. So what was it like to use the very first version of Photoshop? What was there? What wasn't there?
Oh, God, there were no layers.
Right. And so that's why we used a lot of calculations, right? I mean, that's what you would end up doing is you'd have to...
channels and all that good stuff. Yeah, it was... To make a drop shadow was a very complicated thing, but you got a really nice drop shadow. But if you wanted to move something over somewhere, it's like, then you have to redo the part where you took it out of and so on. So you had to keep multiple copies of things. Whereas layers... The brushes, they were very limited. There's just a few little brushes, whereas the brush engine, which came out with version 7... really kind of changed it and made it a painting package. But I'll tell you a funny story about layers. Adobe brought me down to Stanford University, and they stuck me in this room filled with cameras and bright lights and a big mirror. Now, I knew the mirror was a two-way mirror, so I knew there were people back there. And they said, open up Photoshop. So I opened it up, and my eye went right to the menu and saw layers. I said, layers? Wow, layers. So I said, yeah, go look at them. So I started playing. So what do you think? They said, I could hear back there. So what do you think? I said, how come I can't choose more than one layer at a time? That was my first question. Was something that was wrong with it,
Yeah.
But it was like, oh, this is it now, layers. Now, the first time I saw layers was a program called Digital Darkroom.
Right.
That was the second of these types of programs. It was only black and white, but it had layers. Now, the first of these programs, which is right up there, called Image Studio. Image Studio was the first of the image editing programs. It allowed you do all kinds of retouching, and then spit it out to a Velox. Velox we don't use anymore, but it was ready for camera ready art. It was only black and white, but it had a lot of really cool stuff. Had a great airbrush, so I started doing a lot of things with that. So Mac Paint was at that point a long time ago. There was Full Paint and then Super Paint, all these other paint programs that came out. But at that point, I just lost my train of thought. It's so early in the morning for me. I'm usually waking up, about 10 minutes ago.
Yes.
But anyway, so the layers, I was able to go in there and start doing a whole things that I couldn't do before. Now, when I went down to Adobe to see this new thing they were working on, which was the brushes. Okay.
Right.
So I see this brush engine, very early versions of it. And I started playing with it, and I said, I haven't seen anything this cool since Pixel Paint. And they all started laughing. I said, why are they laughing? I said, the guy who wrote the brush engine, Jerry Harris, is the guy one of the two guys who wrote Pixel Paint.
Right.
Like, whoa! And then we got to reunited. It was so good to see him again, and then we worked on it, and it was an uphill battle in many cases. They wanted to get rid of the preview, and I wanted the preview to be in full color and everything else. But at least we kept the preview. But it was all this stuff going on, and the changes here, and layer styles. That was a big thing. So it just getting better. Now you don't even have to do anything. All you have to do is type a few words, and you got a picture.
It's funny, I use it to extend things a lot. But the funny thing is that I felt like there were, like, anytime you talk to someone in the 90s, early 90s that use Photoshop, all they say, that you say Photoshop in the early 90s, and they're like, layers. It was like that was what they remember, is that, oh my gosh, when it changed everything, and I had just started learning it. So I had like a couple months of no layers going, I don't know what I can do with this. And then as soon as it turned on, for me, it was like that, then actions in 5.5, I made a lot of money with actions. Anyway, and then then brushes, and then generative fill. Like, to me, those are the big things that generative fill for me has been like layers. It's something that you think is cool for a while, and I don't use it to make pictures. I use it to just extend things, fix things, take this out, move this over, that kind of thing. It's interesting. Now, you do so much by hand. So you're putting together images. For those of you who haven't watched Bert's work, you're putting together images that are incredibly photoreal, but you're doing it all by hand. Is that right?
All by hand. Yeah, I've been a painter my whole life. And AI, if I was still doing commercial work, it would be useful because it would save me a lot of time. But my paintings, the whole point is, how do I get that effect? How am I going to do this? And there is some way of doing it in Photoshop, whether it's through an alpha channel or through a layer style or whatever it is. There is a way of getting the effect that I want. So I want to do everything by hand. I'm still a painter. I still paint. And I don't use AI for anything, because for me, it's the hand and brush, with my stylus over here. Like this one here. That's what I paint with. The way I've been traditionally trained, the way I've been working my whole life. One big thing that changed things was this thing here. I have a Cintiq here. This is
a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. This is 32 inches. There are 3 other monitors up here, 2 32s and a 34 in the middle. Those are my viewing monitors. But that was like, that's it. I am back to my old ways, but without the smell, without the paint all over my clothes, and having to, that digital had changed the way I approach my work. And I think for the creative mind, it really helps, because, okay, let's say I'm painting something and I just added some tones. I don't quite like that blue. Maybe I'd like it to be a little more, I have to now go get a new blue. I have to wait till this one dries and then try to get it off. And so now I have to wash my brushes, all this maintenance, and mix new paints. That maintenance takes away from the creativity. Whereas now when I think it, boom, I can get it right away.
Right.
So that really enhances the creative process. Now, as far as the painting, that being able to get in close, is important because of the fact that I do like details. And the fact that I have brushes that can take on any shape, I can create those details, be it a grime or leaves or whatever, I can create those very easily. So my paintings became more and more detailed, like the early pixel paint stuff that I did. I was limited to 72 ppi and 256 colors. Okay. When they came out with dithering, that kind of changed things. Because now when I had a gradient before in the 256 color panel, let's say I want a nice blue sky, I would have to use up at least 3 rows for a variance of blue to get a nice gradient. Whereas once they came out with the dithering, the program would set up a pattern of pixels in between the colors so that I can now use, instead of 2 lines of colors, I can use maybe 5 colors, just 5 colors, and that will give me a nice smooth gradient. So it started getting better. Now, when I saw Photoshop, I started using it in my paintings. I would switch to Photoshop to do some little thing that was easier there than in Pixel Paint. But then the Subway Inn was my last Pixel Paint painting, but it was the one where I used Photoshop the most. Photoshop wasn't out yet. So that was the last painting that I did with Pixel Paint. I then started painting with Photoshop. And a lot of the paintings at first, I wouldn't say what they were from, because Photoshop wasn't out yet, but I would say this is my newest painting. I remember one person writing and saying, it looks a lot smoother, a lot cleaner than what you used to do. I said, well, things have gotten a little better. And then Photoshop came out and I was able to say, oh, now I'm a Photoshop artist. So yeah, it's changed through the years. And that first version, just remembering the brushes, I'm sure you can find them online. It's just a little box with these little black shapes that were the brushes, and that was it. There was an airbrush, but it was very early. But then, all of a sudden, 16.8 million colors and higher resolutions and so on. Most of the stuff, my early stuff, was still 72 ppi because the computer couldn't handle it. They just couldn't do it. And in fact, they were all fairly small, and at one point, the computer had gotten so powerful that I'm going to up it to the way I used to work. I used to work on 15 by 20 Bainbridge boards. They were big white boards that I would then paint on and so on. If I needed something with more detail or larger size, I would go to a 30 by 40. Okay, these are standard sizes. They're also standard framing sizes. And my wife kept bugging me, you can't just create shapes of painting. They have to be standard sizes so people can frame them. They don't have to spend a fortune framing. So I went to 15 by 20. And I started getting a lot of detail. Oakland Theater was one of the ones then. But actually, can I show you a couple of these?
Please do.
Let me show you the paintings. And where did I put my little guy here? Oh, here we go. Got this light down there blaming in my face. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Okay, so there's a painting right there because I was using it to test a few minutes ago. That's called Paris.
And and it looks like a photo. Like when you're looking at it over Zoom, it looks like a photo, but that is a painting.
This is Paris Courtyard 2. Paris Courtyard, the original painting that I did, is actually in there. See, it's on the wall. There it is. That's Paris Courtyard. I put it in there. But this is a painting. There's all kinds of little details like on the curtains there and so on. So I really get into it. Now, this painting here, and that's a 15 by 20. This painting here was the first one that I did. Oakland. There it is, Oakland. This is the first one that I did at 15 by 20 at 480 ppi. So I now had jumped up to a higher resolution. The reason I went to 480 is a good friend of mine, Jeff Shewy, a photographer, told me that was the best resolution to work on for the then Epson 2200. Okay, so this is a long time ago. So I worked at 480, and that became my preferred resolution. So when we're getting real close here, you can go in and see the little filaments on the light bulbs and so on. So there's a lot of detail. You can see it's all there. it's there. So this was the first painting.
And this is all painted. So people, like, you're not manipulating photographs. You're painting all of this, right?
Yeah, everything here is done with the brushes and the pen tool. Everything is generated, every pixel by pixel I created. In fact,
and how do you start this? So how do you, when you're doing this, like you decide you're going to do this sign, how do you, what's the first step?
First step, well, the first thing for anything is research. I start to look at how things work. This particular piece here, I got inspired for the painting. I was doing research for a commercial job. I had to do this theater marquee for a Broadway play, Bombay Dreams, a long time ago. And I had to do a theater marquee. So I decided I'm going to go down to Oakland, and because I know this theater, so I wanted to see the way the neons are attached and so on. So taking all the pictures that I needed, I got inspired for the painting. Now, my inspiration comes from many different places. I could be walking down the street and I'll suddenly be inspired. It's like, whoa, I want to paint that. You know, sometimes it's vacation shots. Okay, I'll be going through vacation pictures, and then I will get like, oh, I like this. I want to paint this. So then comes the process. Now, the first thing, of course, is the research. Let me open up another painting here. Actually, getting back to the resolution of 15 by 20, let me just show you one thing right here. It's perfect. It's right there. The computer got good enough that I can go to 30 by 40, okay? I had done one before.
30 by 40 at 480
at 480 dpi. This is the first one I did at that resolution, okay? But I couldn't go to 30 by 40. So I went to 22.5 by 30. The computer could not handle the 30 by 40.
And how long ago was this when you said it couldn't handle
this
it?
One, when did I do this? I did this, actually here, I'll tell you what, let me just very quickly go into here, go into me here. There's my website, and actually here's this guy. And when did I do it? I can't see my thing here. All right, here we go. 2017. Okay,
right.
So
not too far ago, but a lot has changed right now with the new computers, right?
Yeah, a lot has changed. So here, I still was able to get some good detail and better detail than before. Like, you can come in and here and like go over here and you can see the little fish and the oysters and stuff like that. But I couldn't make it to 30 by 40. Then when the Mac Studio came out, I suddenly had the ability to go to 30 by 40. So I created my first 30 by 40 painting, but I don't think I'll ever do it again. And I'll show you why. So this right here, Jazz School. This one is 30 by 40 at 480 ppi. This is a massive file. You can see it's almost a gigabyte in size. So there is a lot of detail. Let me just go to full screen here. And there is a lot of detail. Here's my wife and I walking down the street. See, there we are. And you can see the raindrops in the window here. And way back here, you look in the building here, you can see the stuff. There's some of my paintings are in all the rooms here. You see there down here, there's my paintings, there's bookcase, there's another one. There's Paris Courtyard, the one I just showed you guys. Now, I was able to get a tremendous amount of detail, but the reason I won't do this again is because when I went to print it, it couldn't do it.
The printer couldn't handle it. So you were able to
handle it, but at the largest printer, the 64-inch printer, okay, let me show you something. See that little truck about to turn the corner there?
Yeah.
You couldn't see it. It was so tiny, it was like a 16th of an inch. You couldn't see the detail.
Right.
So in Canvas, it got stuck between a couple of the ribs of the canvas and stuff. So I just could not, I can get the detail, but I wouldn't be able to print it, which means that any paintings I do at that size can only be seen on a computer. They can't be printed. So it was kind of like fun to do it, to get all this stuff in there. But, you know, the only way for people to see all that detail is to see it on online, because you can't get a print on this thing. I had it printed on a 64-inch printer, and There was like you couldn't see a lot of things that I put in there.
But there's something about it when you scale it down, or when you put it onto that print, that you're kind of oversampling, right? So when you scale it down, when it comes together and it can't get to that resolution, the fact that it was there affects the pixels that get left behind, right?
Yeah. And blowing this up to a 64-inch printer makes it really big. I could show you some pictures of a print, but you couldn't see all the detail that I put in. You can see the raindrops on the door over here, but you couldn't see because it is raining. You can see it's raining up here. You can see it's raining, and you can see the rain on the ground and so on. But it just wouldn't work on print. So I've gone back to my normal size of 15 by 20. So, now what I do is I will do research. Now I'll show you a painting where the inspiration came from a vacation shot. Okay, I was in Amsterdam, and let me just show you Amsterdam, and it's called Amsterdam Mist, and my reference.
I think it's Misty Amsterdam. I think it was down. Oh, you have it there.
Here we go. There it is. This is the photograph. Now, the first thing I do is establish the perspective. All right, so I will find my vanishing point, which is here, and I draw vanishing lines all across to know where things are going to go. I'll show you complex ones in a few minutes. But I start by setting up the perspective for this thing. But looking at the photograph, it's like, what's going on back there? What is that? And moving things around, like that lantern right there. What does it look like? I have no idea. A big crucial thing here was this building, this one building on this block here. This black thing here. There's a building here, but I can't tell what that black thing is. Let's pull back a little bit. And there's a doorway, I think, and some windows. I can't really see the detail. Now, I couldn't just pack up and go back to Amsterdam to take some pictures. So here's a case where I relied on Google Street View. So I found out where I was, and I went to that spot, and I went into Street View, and I stood in front of that building, and I took pictures of it.
Virtual pictures.
Let's see, what it was. Here, let me go to Bridge over here. And by the way, last time I was there this is a new painting I'm working on. You're not seeing the painting. The painting's in here, but I'll show it to you in a few minutes. But let's go into, I'm in Bridge, and I want to go to Art. Let's go folders.
And we've got some questions piling up for you, so we might have while you're looking for those things. I'm going to go ahead and Nick throw your first question out.
Well, anyway, here I'll tell you what. I won't look for that. What I'm going to do is I'll just show you the painting itself, because what I did is go to Google Street View, and this is the painting. So when we open it, and Amsterdam, and here's the painting. But now you can see that it's much clearer.
Right.
When we go and look,
it has an artistic feel to it, that you kept the mist, but you took it
And there's the lanterns.
Yeah.
There's a storefront, which I couldn't even tell it was a storefront. And look, one of my paintings is in there.
That's great.
So you see that I went into all the detail that I wanted to get. It's all there, all the bicycles, because I did the research online. Bicycles and leaves on the ground. So all that stuff was done through Google Street View.
That's great.
Now, the perspective, I'll show you one quick perspective here, because it's the one that has the weirdest perspective. And that is a piece that's at the Computer History Museum. And this took 4 years. Right? This is 4 years of work. And when you see the painting, you'll see why it took 4 years. There it is. It's 5 feet by 25 feet. So it's pretty big.
It's incredible.
So go in here, and we go into there's my son. If we zoom into his eye, you can see the reflection of what he's looking at, and you go over here into these windows and see people inside, and all of these things happening all through there. And a lot of detail. There's me when I used to drive a cab in New York City. Time ago. So,
that's great.
And the detail is important. Like here, I'm taking a picture of my wife, and she is in the camera too. See, and there's John Knoll and Tom Knoll, the guys who wrote Photoshop. So everybody in here is somebody that I know. Everybody in the street. Now the perspective for this. Let me go down here and let me just go here real quick, and then I'll start answering questions. Let me hide others. Now, you're still seeing my screen, right?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay. All right. So let me just go in here because I actually did some stuff for you guys here. Inspiration and prep. And let's see. I know I did it.
From David Brady, while you're talking, he said, that building on the left is where I am now, 1515 Broadway. That's where he's watching the show.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And I could have sworn I had Times Square in here. Huh, what do you know? So I'll just open it from the thing itself. Art, Times Square. Yeah, and working files. And way down here is base. Go with this one. There it is. Oh, this is an early one. Oh my God. I opened up an early, but that's okay. You get the idea.
Yeah.
There's the vanishing points, and these are all in their individual layers. Here, see? There's different pieces.
Right.
So now the actual file, which is much bigger. Let's go down here. Let me go back in here 1 second. And then I go to, there we go. Starting me over on this guy. Yes. All right. This is the photograph that I composited to work from.
Mm-hmm.
There. Let me just pull back. I can't see all my stuff. There we go. All right. Now, here you can see that there are all the different things here. Let's erase the graph and let's pull back a little bit so we can see this better. And there we can see all the different lines. There's many of them. Let's turn on more.
And that's how you keep that perfect perspective. Or
yeah, the perspective has to be exact. There's all the different lines and so on. So we're getting close. There's a whole bunch of stuff happening in there. Okay. So, and all kinds of details and little things and stuff that you wouldn't even know what they are until each one would then separate. There's that building where I showed you. So I take the particular vectors from for that building, say, and then I will bring it into Photoshop and put them in position. And then I start drawing within those perspective lines all the things that I need. In some cases, like for instance, all these windows, I did them right here in Illustrator because it was a lot easier.
Right.
But that gives you an idea of how it starts. I start working up with the perspective. Then I work on each part individually. Each building was done separately. I print them along the way to see what I can hold or if I can put more detail and so on. So that's pretty much how I start the whole process to create the final painting, which is this here.
That's incredible.
So you have a question?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions. For the folks watching, make sure to vote on those questions. We won't get to all of them. But vote the questions up and down. But we'll start with Nick.
Thanks. Number one, Bert, thank you so much for sharing what you are sharing right now. I mean, all of this is phenomenal. Obviously, you're one of the first users of Photoshop, and here we are seeing you use it today. I started a little later. I started a little later than you did. I think 90, 91 on a Mac 2. And what's fascinated me about this is I've used all kinds of graphics programs. If I go to compositing, I probably started out with After Effects and went to Shake and went to Nuke and Fusion. And there is no other software in the 30 plus years that this has been around now that has ever supplanted Photoshop for me. And it looks like that's the case for you. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts as to what it is that makes this just like you can't substitute it. You can't. There isn't another tool that does all that Photoshop does. And I just thought I'd ask for your insights on, what is it that makes it so special?
Well, there were a lot of products that came out that were advertised as the Photoshop killer. Okay, that's what they kept calling them. One of them was Live Picture. Okay, I don't know if you remember Live Picture.
Super high res, right? It was able to do retouching.
Expensive, but it was pretty complex. It was pretty complex. The whole function of it. Another one was I mentioned Image Studio before as the first image manipulation program. Okay. Let's move forward a few years to the Mac 2. Now we got Color, and Color Studio became the new one. For Image Studio grew up into Color Studio. Now, Color Studio, again, was far more complex than I would like it to be, or most users would like to be. I remember Kai Krause used to say, the interface it's part of the excitement. It's part of, no, the interface, I wasn't excited about a paintbrush. It's what I would do with that paintbrush that was exciting. The tools don't have to be that exciting. They just have to function. And Photoshop has always been the most powerful tool that has everything that you need in it. And they keep putting stuff. They took stuff out, like the 3D function, which I thought was fairly nice. But nothing could ever compete with it. Color Studio, they finally gave up on that, and they sold it to Meta Creations. They renamed it Painter, and Painter is still around today. But Painter is the evolution, which is now owned by Corel. But Painter is the evolution of Image Studio, the first of these programs. But the just picking color is a far more complex thing than just in Photoshop. So the fact that Adobe listened through the years, they listened to me, they listened to a bunch of other people. Not always, like I still want folders for paths, but that's okay. They always say nobody uses paths like you do. But anyway, so but they listened and they would then apply the stuff. They had a really good team working on Photoshop. And if I wanted to do this kind of a thing, well, sure enough, before long there'd be something that would be able to do that. So it's that ease of use, which has always been the thing about Adobe products, is the ease of use. So all you have to do is have the imagination, and it gives you all the tools in one place to do. You have your airbrush, you have your photo retouch, everything in one place to create whatever it is that you're imagining in your creativity.
Good,
so
Bill.
that's I would say I have yet to see a Photoshop killer, and it's been around. I'll tell you a little secret. I did this one painting, Fog City, in 1990, because I was preparing for the big anniversary of 30 years. There was a little tiny reception here in San Francisco for the 25th year. So I thought, I'll unveil my thing at whatever the event is for the 30th anniversary. Nothing was happening. Nobody was saying anything. So I called him out. I said, what are you doing for the 30th anniversary? Nothing. You're not doing anything? No, we don't want people to realize that it's that old. So,
oh man,
it's like, okay, it's all right, but it's a great tool and it's been around for a long time, and it just gets better and better. So
there's so many things in it that are just hidden into the that you don't You don't need to know everything. Like when I did my first training in Photoshop, people kept on asking me to do it, and I was like, there's other people that do this better. And I got to the slice tool, and I went, see, this is the slice tool. I don't know what that is, but I've been using this for like 10 years. You probably don't need to start there. And I just moved on to the next thing. I was like, I'm not going to even try to show all these buttons. And there's just too many.
Yeah. Well, talking about hidden things. Okay. A lot of people don't realize the modifier keys, Command, Option, Shift, Command, Alt, and so on. Those are modifier keys. And a lot of the functions in Photoshop will work differently if you hold down some of those keys, or all of them. Okay, These are things that are not documented in many places. A simple thing like clouds. All right, clouds. Very simple filter creates clouds based on the foreground and background color. Right. But if you hold down the Option key and apply clouds, it'll create the clouds, but with a higher contrast. All right. Just try that, because that's such a simple filter. Try that sometime, and you'll see that first you get some gray clouds with a black and white, you get some nice gray clouds. But if you hold down an option button, you get some really dark areas and some really bright areas. So it creates a much more dramatic cloud. So things like the option buttons, they don't always, there's a lot of Easter eggs that aren't advertised.
I'll just share before I yield the floor that one hidden feature that I am terrified Adobe will drop someday is the Excel file functionality, where you can mass produce a variety of images based on data in an Excel file, and I have numerous workflows that are based on that. And I'm maybe one of two people in the world that maybe still use it, and I'm just worried that one day it's going to be updated and it's going to be gone like the 3D.
Oh, well, do a whole bunch of different things under different names and send them to Adobe so they'll say, oh, look, a lot of people are doing this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good, Bill.
Hacking the system. First and foremost, fabulous work. It's just a pleasure to have you here, so thank you for being here. I'm interested just because it was last week when Apple did the new Pencil 2 and they had things like pinch and squeeze and barrel roll and things like that. Are you paying any attention to that kind of stuff, or are you really happy with the Cintiq workflow that you've got now and you don't want to mess with anything else?
Well, the iPad, I remember Jerry Harris, who did the brush engine, John Knack from Adobe. They came here a long time ago when the iPad first came out. And they said, oh, you got to get this thing. It's going to be great. Photoshop is going to be in it and work on it. And so I went out and bought an iPad. And then came Photoshop. And I said, this isn't my Photoshop. This is a Photoshop for photographers. This is not my Photoshop. I can't do this. There were other painting programs in there that I started using, but the Photoshop that I was used to was not the one that's in the iPad. So I was very disappointed. But I do like the iPad, and I am interested in that new one, and I'm thinking I'm going to probably get it for myself soon. But the Cintiq, it does everything. It gives me all that room to work on. The iPad is good if I want to paint on location somewhere, like I want to do sketches, which I used to do. That's another thing I do is I take photography of the scene that I want to shoot from different angles, but the camera distorts. So I also will sit there and sketch. That way I'm seeing the proper alignment of things, not the distortion or the weird things that you get from a photograph. So I sketch. And I used to do it with a sketchbook that I have over there. Now I do them with an iPad. I will go on to a place and sketch it on the iPad. So that way I can quickly transfer it over to the computer and use it as my background so I can see where things are placed and so on.
Go ahead, Courtney.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Bert. It's amazing that Times Square painting is full. It's just a basket full of Easter eggs, and the fact that you can't see them all on a printout amazes me. I noticed the large format printer. You said you had a 64 inch. Is that an Epson Sure Color behind you there?
Yeah, that's an Epson back there. Yeah, that's a 44 inch.
44 inch.
Yeah.
So you've got a bigger one than that, huh? And
no, that Epson does them for me. If I need something in 64, I just call them up and they send it to me right away. Yeah, let me show you a quick Easter egg right here. Okay. Right here. Let me get over to this side. Okay, here. All right, there's a little game going on here. See, these three guys are from Epson, and these three guys are from Wacom. See? Now.
And they're playing three-card money.
They're playing three-card
money. On top
money.
of an Epson.
And he just lost $20 right there. Now, he's the guy who's looking out for the cop. And this is a trade show geek who never took off his tag, you see. So now, over here, so let me just move up here. Now, right down here. See?
Oh.
Now nobody ever noticed that, but there's a little grass, there's a little dirt.
That's reality in New York City.
Out of the sidewalk. Amazing.
Crazy stuff that I will do.
Life finds a way.
Yeah, to make something look right. I'll add some stupid little thing like that nobody will ever see, but it is important.
And what's the PPI on that particular
This one,
image?
because of the size, it isn't 480, it's 360.
360.
Slumming it at 360 PPI at 5 feet by 25 feet. Yeah. What's the actual pixel by pixel?
Well, in the actual painting here, we'll go look at it. Pixels. It is 54,000 by 10,800.
It's incredible.
That is
There's
amazing.
And this was done a while ago. This wasn't done recently, right?
Oh no, this was done quite some time ago. You could see the watch and the stitching and everything. So I get into it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, this was done quite a while ago. Yeah, in fact, when did I do it?
Yeah.
Let's see. Here, Times Square, there, 2010.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot of resolution for that time frame. Let's go ahead and jump into the questions.
Our first question comes from Al Trivet in Carmichael, California, and he wonders, what impact, if any, will AI have on your future work?
Okay. I know Al. Hi, Al. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. I rely on HI, human intelligence. Because I'm a painter and not a prompter, for me, the whole challenge is, how do I get that effect? If I just type something and let the computer do it, that's, if I was still doing commercial work, yeah, it would have a tremendous effect on my work because, time constraints, they don't want to pay as much as I want, that kind of thing. So I would probably rely on the computer to do a lot of the work for me. But I'm a painter. I do the stuff myself. I don't want the computer to do anything for me. In fact, I used to say something a long time ago, which I can't say anymore. I did it at the beginning of a show once. The art world hasn't totally accepted digital art. And what I used to be told a long time ago is computers doing all the work. And I used to tell people at this one show, I remember saying, I dare you to sit down in front of your computer, open up Photoshop, sit there and wait for it to do something. Nothing's going to happen. Of course, nowadays,
No, I can't.
You just type in, give me a enchanted forest, boom, there it is, So it has no future for me because of the fact that I'm not doing commercial work anymore. I'm kind of retired from that whole thing. And for me, the joy is creating, not letting the computer create based on what I said. So I don't see any future for it. The one advantage I have for it is that when my grandniece and nephew come over to stay and we have to cook and prepare stuff and get it ready, I stick them in front of the computer and let them create things using AI. And they've done some really cool stuff. And they found a limitation. They said, we did that. And I walk in there and there's this prehistoric forest and there's dinosaurs in it. They put in dinosaurs and all that stuff. And I says, I wanted this dinosaur to take a poop. I can't do it. So there are certain strict restrictions that you can't put in there. So, okay, you can't do a poop. I tried it and I couldn't do a poop. But anyway, it keeps the kids entertained. And it's fun to show people, look what can happen. For me personally, no, I see nothing for it. Even for writing, I like to write the way I speak. So I'm not going to let the computer do anything for me. If it can do my books, that's cool. But I'm not going to go in and use AI for any of my paintings.
Next question.
Clive Kirchner in Souk, British Columbia, Canada, is our next questioner. Assuming Photoshop is at the top of the heap, do you keep track of the other contenders in the field and perhaps take them for a test drive now and then?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm always looking for that one thing that might work. I still get sent stuff by people, developers and stuff, to see what I think of them and stuff. I haven't found anything that's going to replace Photoshop for me. So, I'm sticking to what my tool of choice. Who knows in 10 years?
Right.
Well, if I live that long. So who knows what it'll be like. I might find something that's a little better. I might use them both together like I did with here. I'll show you the last pixel paint painting. And it's the first Photoshop one that where I used Photoshop. Let me get this. Let's see. All this stuff. And all the files. And pixel paint. Well, I got a lot of stuff. Pixel
You've
paint.
done a couple things here and there.
Yeah, and the subway end. Oh, wow. How come I get so many paintings of it? Here it is. Yeah, this is the last pixel paint painting. See how small it comes out? The last pixel paint painting, but this is the first one where I actually used Photoshop in a painting, because you see the dirt and things like that? The airbrush in Photoshop was much better than the one that was in pixel paint. So I did a lot of pieces in here in Photoshop and then incorporated it into pixel paint. This was done in January of 1989.
Wow.
But and you can see that it's very pixelated because it was 72 ppi.
Right.
But this, I had seen Photoshop, and yeah, it was a better product. If I see something someday that has all the features of Photoshop, I'm sure they're going to get sued a lot by Adobe. But I could find something someday that I might like and use it in conjunction with Photoshop. We'll see.
Right. Next question.
In 10 years.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Jeffrey Reyes in the Bronx, New York. Can you give a rundown of your studio setup?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me see. I'll tell you what. I got a picture here I can open. And not a bridge. Go back over here. And let me hide others. Because I can't move this thing around so that you could see what things look like, but because I've got it set up so I can do this presentation here. But I'll tell you, let me get in here and set up. Well, actually here, let me do it this way with this one. All right, here, this is my workstation right here. And by the way, look, there's a cube. An Apple Cube. It doesn't work anymore, but I use it as a stand for a monitor.
I have mine right here. It's in my wall of depreciation.
There you go. Yeah. So there's another Epson printer. So this is the Cintiq. It's a 32-inch Cintiq, and these three BenQ monitors up here. These two are 32 inches, and this is a 34-inch. It's lower. It's a different aspect ratio. But here you can see that this is where I'm working, and these are reference shots here. Now, I'm going to show you, since I got a few more minutes, I'm going to show you another shot like this. But this is a piece I'm working on, and you'll see a stage in which I'm working, so you'll be able to see exactly how this all goes. Here, this is a painting I'm working on. Now, this is my subject. This is the shape that I like. So you see here, this is the painting in progress. So I've come along a lot more since then. And here I'm close up, and this little area right here, I'm working on it real close. So I work real close. So this monitor has full view of the painting in progress. This has the subject itself, and here is the style that I'm going after. See, that's the shapes that I'm going for rather than the shape of the original photograph, because I wanted it to be looking up at it rather than down at it. So there's my original setup right there. These three monitors plus the one down below. Now I have a second station behind me over here, next down the thing here, which has another Cintiq and another Mac Studio, which is in case people are visiting. I do get a lot of visitors, and they spend, I have a guest room, so they stay here. If they want to do serious work, they can go and work on that machine. Or if I'm back in the day, I would have two machines, because if I did something like in 3D and I have to render it, it would take forever on one machine. So I would go and continue working on the other machine. But that other machine over there is just for guests at this point. But that's my basic setup. There's a Mac Studio, which is right down here, and it's fully loaded. I've got close to 40 terabytes of storage, multiple drives. I have a series of drives right here next to my computer that I can quickly grab and pull them out and run in case there's a fire. So, because this is the Berkeley Hills, so there are fires and earthquakes. So my setup is basically this: a Mac Studio and these four monitors.
That's great. Next question.
Bobby Rafferty's up next from Central Florida. Bert, if you could start digital art with current technology, would you be using 3D artistry?
I did. I used 3D Artistry quite a bit when it was. Well, I did a lot of 3D stuff back in things with. Oh, geez, now I forget the names of them. There's a whole bunch of early 3D programs which I really latched onto.
Infinity? Did you use Infinity?
Infinity, yes. Infinity was
Strata?
Strata, and there was
Electric Image, Form Z.
Form Z. That's another
yeah.
one. Yeah, well, I used all of those. And then I got into the 3D functions in Photoshop, which I used quite a bit. In fact, here, I opened up, let's see, the dome. I had it before. Did I open it? Let me see the dome here. Oh, I've opened a lot of things, I guess. No. The dome. All right, let me open up the dome again. Because I'll show you where I use 3D there. A very simple little piece, but it was 3D.
I will say that I can actually, it took me a second when you showed the Ledome. The French onion soup there is exceptional.
There you go.
Right, so, I was like, I've been there. I think I've seen that before. I was like, I have been there. So anyway.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, you see those posts? That's 3D.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now I added a little texture map to make them kind of aged and stuff like that. You can see them right there. But these were actually done in 3D because there were so many of them, and they're slightly different. So I just created one, and then I rotated them so the dirt would look differently and so on. But that's a 3D function right there. So I don't use it a lot, but I do. And there's all kinds of good stuff here. There's some little clams there.
Well, you can draw in 3D. It makes it easier. It makes it harder.
Yeah.
Just justify using in 3D.
I don't use that much in 3D.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones from Madison, Indiana is up next. If recreating reality is your motivation, are there any tools you refuse to use?
No.
The
AI tools, but
right.
No, everything has a function, and there's some tools that I don't use. Certain filters that deal with photography that I don't. I'm not a retoucher. I've done retouching, but I'm not a retoucher. So there's a lot of tools that I have no need for, but I don't refuse to use them. There's everything in there has a function. I try to understand it and see how it works. If it works for me, then good, I'll use it. If it's not, well, I might show it to somebody who needs it, but I don't. There's nothing I refuse to use. No.
That's great. Next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas asks this: how much do you obsess about color calibration, neutral gray work areas, things like that? My own vision, I realize after cataract surgery in one eye, is dramatically yellowed with age.
Oh, how interesting. Because I had cataract surgery, and I did when I got the first eye done, they were done 8 months apart. And I did a painting for the doctors to see what I was seeing. And I didn't realize, but everything had a yellowish cast to the world for me. When all of a sudden this one eye, blue was blue, there was no yellow cast, and I would see the difference between the two eyes. And color is important. It always has been important to get the color right. Maxfield Parrish was one of my influences growing up, and he has very saturated colors. So my colors tend to be a little more saturated than reality, than the photographs that I take. So color is important. I do calibrate my monitors. I do have, having so many different monitors, I will see when the color is off on one, like I'll have the same picture on all four of them, and I'll see if, this one can use a little help right now.
We're a bunch of geeks. We're going to ask you, what do you use to calibrate your monitors?
I use a bunch of different tools, and I forget what they're called. Here's one. Data color.
Data color. Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing me?
Yep, we can see
I
you.
don't see myself. So this data color. This is one of the ones that I use to calibrate. But fortunately, like the BenQs, they don't need to be calibrated that often.
Right.
And those are the ones that I'm viewing the color on. The Cintiq, I've calibrated it once because it doesn't. It's pretty good. It's in good shape. But I I'm seeing the color. I'm seeing what I'm creating. So if it's not exactly the same, I'm picking the color on one of the other monitors that are color perfect. That's where the color monitors are, the color palettes are. So I will pick them from there, and also I print. I then print things to make sure that the color is right.
Right.
So.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. What advice would you give to emerging artists who are interested in exploring both photorealism and generative art? What skills or knowledge should they prioritize developing?
Well, the first thing they should do is develop their observation. I tell all my students to go through life with your eyes open. Look at how things work. Don't just, I'm going to put in a shadow. How does that shadow work? How does the shadow really look? As it gets further away, it starts to get a little blurred. It gets a little pulled. To really open your eyes and look at the world and how things work so that you could then recreate them. Now, if there's something that, some basic shape or something that you don't want to spend a lot of time creating or not sure how to create, well, there's a good place where the AI will help to create some element like the dinosaurs that the kids were working with. But I would say that the most important thing is to know your tools. Learn Photoshop, learn every aspect of it, everything you can. And you can watch all the videos, you can read all the books. The best thing to do is to sit there and play. Push the buttons, hold on to that Option key. And like when I get software, there's no manual, okay? So I will literally hold on the Option key and run my finger across the keyboard and see if something happened. What was that? And then that's how I find Easter eggs. So I go in there and I play and learn the tool. And that's the most important thing, is to be observant of the way things work. And then when you want to reproduce them, is to learn the tools that you're going to use. Once you master them, then, the only thing that's left is your imagination. That's all you need.
Just a couple great questions. Somebody's going to ask 2 more questions. Go ahead. Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto. Where can we see more of your art? Any exhibits or installations?
Well, the Museum of Natural History, the Computer History Museum in Mountain View has Times Square. There's shows that go around and travel around. Epson would sometimes, conferences would have my paintings. I don't know of any places, usually during shows, there's like conferences, there'll be a little show of my stuff. But I don't know of any place right now that has a exhibit.
I think we need to build a virtual Bert Monroy gallery. The Apple Vision Pro.
Yeah, BertMonroy.com is the best place to go and find stuff because it's all there. Whatever I'm working on, the latest is there. In November through, there's actually, I'm working on it now. The Los Angeles County Museum of Art is having a show called Digital Witness, Revolutions in Design, Photography, and Film. They were here to talk with me about stuff, and I've got a couple of pieces in there. That's going to be opening up November 24th through July 13th of 2025. It's going to be an interesting show. It's all part of PST Art, which is the Art and Science Collide group of exhibitions. PST Art. You can go to pst.art for their website, or the lacma.org for the museum. But they're going to be putting on a very interesting show. And what this show is basically about the effect on the graphic arts industry that the computer has had. So it's a pretty interesting show. I haven't seen the whole show. I just know the pieces that I have in it. And they were commercial pieces. But anyway, so actual exhibit, well, yeah. I don't have any
virtual
right now.
We'll talk. I have this idea. I saw it when the question we started answering. I was like, we need to build a virtual gallery for you. It's a digital art inside of a digital gallery for the Apple Vision Pro. So we should figure that out. So the next question.
And the final one, Matthew Grindle in Milford, Maine asks, for Bert, what was your favorite piece of work so far? Are you going to teach any more classes online?
Yeah, I do a few classes online. I don't have one scheduled yet for next year, and I have no for this year. There might be some later on, but I haven't gotten anything yet. I do have my YouTube channel that has the making of Times Square, because that used to be on lynda.com, which is now LinkedIn, and they took it down, and a lot of people started writing me, "Hey, where is it? I need it for my classes," and teachers who use it to show their students. And so I called them up, LinkedIn. I said, "Can I have the files?" And they let me have them, and I put them up on my YouTube channel for free. So the 14 hours of training is for free on that. I'm going to open up a new piece here that I'm working on now, and these are all the parts. So I'm just going to show you parts. Let me see. I'm going to open up front here. This is that truck you saw a second ago. I'm going to show you a few pieces so you can see how they start to form. That's the front of the truck. Okay, the fenders are different. Like here's the fenders. I'm working on the fenders, but the fenders has more of the truck visible. So see, here's more of the truck. So you can start to see how the fender. These are the fenders. I put the truck in there just to see what it's looking like, and there's the comp. The comp of the whole thing, and here it is, the current state of things. And I'm going to just break it down real quick so you can see. For here, you can see the stuff. I didn't put the fenders in here yet, but there you can see the pieces that I feel are almost complete. Nothing is completely finished yet, but if we look at the front here, and we're getting close. Like, let's say we'll go right into this area here. Yeah, right here. Okay, so I'll go in here and I'll click on this, and we go look at the layers. There's a comp, so we click on there, and there you see there's a little bevel logo. See how each layer, you can see when I start to turn, that's the logo. There's the logo shape itself, which is very simple. So if I just show you that, you can see there it is. It's just a shape. And then there's the bevel. The bevel has been put in. And then there's some highlights there, more bevels. There's the darker ones. There's the white, a little more white in there. There's some grays, a little more gray that was put in there. Here's the black. And here's the grime. So there you can see all the different pieces that go into just that little logo. The stuff in the back is somewhere else here. So click on that, and there's under. Right. There's more stuff there. So everything is its own layer.
Yeah. It's a great logo by International Harvester, by the way. I always loved that logo. I grew up with it. So anyway, it's this is really amazing. Bert, we're gonna have to have you come back. That's all I can say is that if you come back, okay.
Yeah,
right,
please.
Right. Yeah. So it was we got through about a tenth of I think what we hoped to talk about today. So we'll have to have Bert back and maybe even put together some classes with Bert or something. So
yeah, actually, some classes would be good because that way I can get into details on all these different things and how to get creative. So
all right,
in progress.
All right. Thank you, Bert. Thank you so much for your time. It was just so fantastic to have you on.
It's been fun. It's great.
I kind of wanted to have the show grow up before we brought you on because I was like, oh, it's going to be great, and I got to make sure that all the things are working, and they worked great. So it was really, really great to have you.
Yeah, maybe the next time it'll be mostly demos and not how I got started.
Yeah, we had to get started though. It was great though. I mean, it gave us a jump to the past and understanding what it took to get there. You don't get that story very often, so I think it was worth it. So we'll bring you back for some more demos. It'd be fantastic.
Cool. All right.
Thanks so much. And thanks to the panelists here who carried the first hour and kept us going in the second hour as well. Really appreciate all your contribution. Thanks to all the viewers, the producers who are watching the show and asking the questions that keep it going in from all over the world. Thanks to the incredible development team. As you know, this isn't a the development team, the management team, the teams that are putting together the website, the teams that keep everything running. There's so many teams that make all of this show possible, everything around it. And we really appreciate everybody's contribution to making this show actually happen every single day, 7 days a week. Haven't missed a day since March 25th. 2020. So we're cruising along. The Tlaloc Traversal today, so if we had to walk around and ask these questions person by person, we would have traveled 30,000 miles. That's 48,000 kilometers, and that is 234 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into After Hours. So great to have you on, Bert. That was good.
And love to see a Bert Monroy exhibit on 100-inch monitors with touch to zoom, so you could zoom in on the detail on each one. Wouldn't that be cool?
I know what I'm doing with my next LED wall.
Touch to zoom.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much, Bert.
Okay, man. It's been a pleasure.
It's so great to have you on. All right. See ya.
We're off.
Yeah, just a couple of us are sticking around to watch the credits. Oh, there's the logo. We are done. Absolutely fabulous day. Thank you so much for coming in.
All right, man. Thanks.
We're going to have to do this again. Bye-bye.
Bye.